Très expensive.
wine.
We're the ones you sell her and bring out on birthdays.
Like that bottle right there.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Well, it's recording now.
Have you ever, say it again,
Interviewed people as old as us. Really?
My guitar teacher might have been. I don't know how old you guys are. You're giving me vague
I know,
answers.
right? Like,
I was told never to ask, so
you're so
I'm keeping
white.
it up.
Oh my goodness.
I used to work at a call center, and I would have to ask people their age and literally get the number out of them, and that was so difficult. People would never want to tell me.
And
No, I can't say never, but people would get mad.
And that's even over the phone.
Over the phone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's terrible. It's a terrible question to ask, Tori.
It is.
Yeah.
I don't feel my age. So like when I say it out loud, I'm just like, oh God, that's so weird. And then I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, that doesn't really match how I feel
owning it.
anymore.
You know what I mean?
You were owning it. Look at you.
Okay.
You were owning it.
45. 45.
45.
Yeah.
I think my guitar teacher is older.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
he's in his 50s.
And
We're
I'm
not there
42.
yet.
I'm 42.
Yeah,
So.
look at us go.
Right on.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Well, this is officially it.
Officially it.
I don't know what episode I'm on. I think it's like 15 or something. But so I'm here with Tori and Jolene, who are both lovely yoga teachers who are in their 40s apparently.
Just to get that out there right away.
Yeah.
Open and honest conversations.
Yeah, for real. So I guess I just firstly want to thank you guys so much for arranging this and agreeing to sit down and talk. We all have busy lives and it's not always easy.
I feel totally honored that you
Me
asked
too.
me.
No, you guys have already taught me lots, and so yeah, this has been on my mind for a while. So I guess I just want to ask maybe some good first questions. Might be, how did you two meet, and how did you get into yoga?
Oh my gosh.
This is a good one.
How did you get into yoga?
Okay, I'll tell you that story because it's a good one, and I actually just mentioned it to who was I talking to this week? Somebody, and I know I was teaching teacher training. It was a prenatal teacher training out at Therapeutic Approach, which is where I still teach 500 hours, and I was just recalling my journey into yoga, and it really was after my first son was born. He's 17, and I had quite bad postpartum depression, actually, like really kind of scary bouts of like panic and fear and like, oh my gosh, I've created this little human and now what? This is just crazy. And it was actually, he was born just before 9/11, that year, 2001, January. And so it sort of hit quite hard right after that. It was like, why have I done this? Like, oh my God, the world is crazy. This is really scary. And so a lot of old sort of stuff came up for me at that point too, fear. And so when I got back, long story short, but we were in New Zealand at the time and traveling and living there. And when we got back, I started a regular yoga practice on Saturday mornings. And I just remember coming out of yoga class and looking at the sky and thinking, oh my God, did the sky get bluer and the grass get greener? You know, everything was more clear and just made sense. And it just felt like I was grounded. So connecting back into my body and my breath literally saved my life at that point. I mean, I might be over-exaggerating there, but in my mind at the time, it didn't feel that way. You know, so that became a regular practice for me. And then not long after that, I started just really regularly practicing Ashtanga. Actually, it was my first love. Was that real practice of movement and flow and counting your breath, and it's something about that consistency was so important for my body at that time. Yeah, and I haven't done it since then, but I've gone off on some other tangent. But you know, at the time it was so amazing. So that was, I would say probably 16 years ago when I really earnestly began that journey. I had done yoga before. My first yoga experience was that book, that black and white book that my mom must have had or somebody had. It was like the 21 Days of Yoga, you know, and you follow along in the book and shoulder stand, you know, with no instruction, just a picture.
Just after it,
Yeah, so anyway, so that's kind of my first journey into it. And I started teaching not long after that. I did my teacher training from that experience.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I got into it probably in my late 20s. I went all the way. You know, like I played, you know, like for the province for basketball, and I played soccer too, and I ran, and you know, it sort of continued out of college too. And I remember like distinctly one winter being at the gym, and like I hurt my neck, and it was like weird. I had never really been injured. Like I had rolled ankles and stuff, but like I had never felt pain or any sort of chronic pain. I'd been really sort of lucky growing up and healthy. And I was at the gym, and something just sort of like went ding, and I couldn't move my neck. Like I couldn't move my head, and I had just the worst searing pain ever. And like I ended up in the emergency room, and like all this weird stuff. Anyway, and then like 2 months later, like I hurt my shoulder. Like my rotator cuff, I had a tear. Like just weird stuff started happening. And
he's so old at 28.
I know.
We felt that way at the time, didn't we? We really did.
Right? We did. And so I just sort of had this epiphany that I needed something different in my life. Like everything had been the same, you know, physically. And then when I started doing yoga, I realized eventually that sort of everything had been the same forever. Like you start to, you know, see all these patterns so clearly that keep repeating in your life. So it wasn't just physically I've been doing the same, and like in relationships I've been doing the same, and professionally I've been doing the same. And you end up repeating all of these patterns and mistakes and over. And yoga was really the thing that helped me first shine a light on it, and then sort of move past it and choose differently for the first time. And so I think that was in my late 20s. I was so old, but I would say by the time I was 30, I had a regular practice. And again, I was everywhere. I was like at the yoga loft, and the Ashtanga was big in the city. That was like our first. That was our first style of yoga that hit Halifax. And then I eventually found a home studio that resonated with me. And then I didn't take my teacher training till my daughter, Zoe, who's 7 now, she was a newborn when I started my teacher training. And then I found out I was pregnant 2 months in with a surprise baby. So anyway, started with a newborn, finished 8 months pregnant.
Oh my God.
I
didn't know that.
It was crazy. It was a crazy time in my life.
Good time to do it though.
It was. There was so much change. So much change.
Sometimes it just comes all at once.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Anyhow.
I didn't know that story.
Yeah.
Cool. So I guess when did you decide you wanted to open up your own studio?
Don't know. Do I really want to open my own studio? Well, I saw the studio in my head for a really long time before I did anything about it. It was just there. It was with me all the time. I was teaching at another studio for a while, and I love business. I worked in the corporate world for a really long time, and I loved the business aspect of it as well. I mean, I love teaching, but I really love business too. And I always thought, I don't know how to marry these worlds. I don't know how they can ever come together and coexist. And then I was downsized. I got out of my corporate job. It was like that.
Oh my God.
It was just done like overnight. And I had a 2-year-old and I had a 3-year-old. And I knew that I needed a change. Again, it was sort of like one of these patterns that was emerging. Like, I need a change. I was sick all the time, all the time. I had laryngitis all the time. I had pneumonia. It was crazy. So I needed a change. And so I started on the mat, but on the mat wasn't a studio at the time. It was just me going around and teaching a zillion yoga classes. And so I built the brand and like that little logo and the website and all of that stuff. And I don't know, I kept sort of pounding up against this, like, I don't know, it was just like a voice that was speaking to me. You need to do this. You need to. It was, but I didn't even know what this was. It was just something I kept sort of fighting against. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I would break through and then I would hit the wall again. I would break through and I'd hit the wall again. And I was trying to change everything else and sort of make everybody happy at my home studio because I've been there forever. And you feel so much loyalty to your students and you feel so much loyalty to your teachers and your colleagues. And in the end, I just sort of had to blow it all up and start the studio.
The universe was really nudging you.
Yeah. It was
But
not.
you were listening and you were
Well,
there.
it was so hard to make the decision. It was just such a hard decision to make because I knew that I would disappoint people, and that's so challenging. It was really heartbreaking. It broke my heart to have to hurt people's feelings because I knew that some people would never understand. But once I made the decision, it was like everything sped up, like time sped up, and things started falling into place, and it was just so right. It felt so free, and like everything I'd been hitting was all of a sudden was like gone. It was amazing. It was like the brakes were just taken off the car, and I was going full speed. It was really insane. Yeah,
you're going downstream instead of upstream.
Exactly.
That's
exactly
what life's
it felt
about.
like. Yeah.
It's been my messaging lately in my classes, like just getting on a different channel. Like what channel are you on? Like what frequency are you on? What channel?
Yeah.
So change the channel. Like if it's not working, if you notice what you're getting back is resistance or whatever.
Yeah. And so you say that.
Especially in class too. Like in your own class.
Yeah.
What does it feel like when you're practicing? Does it feel like downstream or upstream? Like just
I know.
Get on the downstream current. Like don't force it. Don't make it harder than it should be.
And we make it so hard too.
Yeah.
We really do. And like when you're in that state of limbo, when you really don't know what you're going to do, or you have to do something but you're not sure what it is, you make so many excuses as to why you're staying in this state, right? In this suffering state, like Jill, our friend Jill Payne. Well, it's comfortable. You don't want to hurt people's feelings. I like my.
It's working somehow for us.
Somehow,
something's working.
Something's working, but then there's the constant fight and the constant like bumping up against something, right? Yeah, it's hard to make decisions like that.
I like how you said you saw yourself with that image of the studio. Like that's a real manifestation that you did there. Like you saw it, you felt it, and you just weren't going to settle for anything less than that.
I would always create schedules in my head.
Amazing.
Always.
I love that.
I would say to my sister, we would go for a run. I'd be like, if I create the schedule, this is what I would do. Put this person here and this person here. It's like a chess game. I really sort of like it. Yeah, it's the strategy involved.
You're good at it.
Oh,
this is why I don't own a studio, and that's why I'm teaching for you. Because I would really suck at that part of it. Or maybe I wouldn't, I don't know, but like I don't really want to try.
You can always start out sucking and then learn how to do it.
That's true.
But yeah.
I'm quite happy with the way it's going right now.
I'm quite happy with the way it's going too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what about maybe teaching in general? Was there a point when the practice shifted from just something for your own sake to, I know enough about this, or I'm passionate enough about this, maybe I should start learning more about it formally and then getting certified and instructing other people?
I'll take this one.
Yeah.
Just because at the time when I was doing that, 16 years ago, 17 years ago, I remember my girlfriend Nicola said to me, I'm going to do this teacher training. You should come along. It'll be great. I'm like, okay, I'll just do it for me because I love the practice so much. I'm just going to learn more. I'm going to take it all in. And now I hear people say that all the time. Like, right? Right. That's a good one. You talk to me in a couple of months because inevitably you get, you understand. I don't think you ever feel like in the beginning that teaching is that you're good at it or whatever. It's just that something is calling you to serve in a way, it's part of that other, it's part of one of the limbs, sharing what you know, and when I learned it, it was like, okay, I've got to do this. This is like, I had to. It was literally, I couldn't do anything else after that. Yeah. And then especially because of the prenatal experience I had, I started really kind of teaching more prenatal, postnatal. Like my drive was to help as many women as possible in the beginning, and then branched out into many different genres of yoga and ways of teaching. But yeah, it's definitely I don't know if you call it a passion. It's more like, what's the word I'm looking for?
No.
It's just what you're supposed to do.
Yeah,
for me, it's just I can't imagine.
It's an extension of yourself,
right?
Really,
And you're sharing who you are. It's a very vulnerable experience to stand up in front of people, actually, especially in the beginning. So vulnerable to stand there and offer yourself and not hide behind a lot of stuff music or whatever. And I know I use music now, but I didn't for a really long time. And just to get into the practice of being there, standing in front of people. I've often cried so many times in front of people. Like lately, just so connected to what's going